Hello, friends, and thank you so much for joining Coffee Chat with Shelly. I am so excited to be here with you today. We want to talk about how we can make our lives over 50 healthier, happier, and more exciting as we live our creative lives because we want our Act 2 to be better than ever. Joining me today is author Cynthia Matlock, and I am so excited to hear her story. But let me tell you this, if you have not subscribed to Shelly's Creative Life, please do so. I could really use your support. Now, on with the interview. So we had some technical difficulties, so the format is a little different, but still a great conversation. So my first question to author Cynthia Matlock was, what motivates her to live a creative life?
Just trying to live out a purpose. Every day I have to get up and think of what am I supposed to be doing today? And writing is something I've been doing for about 20 years, but mainly I started off journaling and just writing little short stories. Then I started entering contests, and when I won a few contests, I said, well, I must be doing pretty good. Then I started sending off to magazines, and that's very competitive because people don't read as much as they used to. And I was getting my articles accepted. And then, 2020, I decided to publish a book. So writing almost drives me. I get up and little stories are in my head, and I just fit that time in my day when I can to write something.
As we continue to talk about her writing life, she talks about how, because of her background and where she was raised, she's been able to come up with a lot of different stories that really appeal to her readers.
Well, I was raised on a farm out from Jacksonville, and I have so many stories dealing with farm life. So we live in a rural part where we get a magazine that emphasizes rural lifestyle. So I was thinking, oh my gosh, I have a lot of stories to share. So I just kind of think of different things that we experience, but I always try to have an underlying message with the stories. I send them off, and some are accepted, some are not. But I get readers from all over the state that email me and say, oh, that brought back such a great memory. And I remember doing something like that. So I love hearing from the readers.
As Cynthia continued with her creative writing life, she decided to write her first book.
My first book is Dancing in the White Sand, and it was loosely based on my great grandmother. Most people would say great, 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 but my great grandmother was enslaved and was brought to Palestine, Texas. And my dad, who was born in 1909, I had an older grandmother, great grandmother, and so they were able to share some things that she shared with them. And her story just kept sticking with me as a teenager. I didn't take her into the 20s or whatever. How was it for a teenage girl at that time? So the story just came a part of something I just had to tell. I did a lot of research because when you write historical fiction or even nonfiction, you have to have facts right. So I did really well with that in 2020. So that was a tough year to release anything because you couldn't get out and promote, but it still did really good.
With the amount of research that Cynthia had to do, I asked her, how long did it take?
To really, for stretching it out with daily life and all that, I'd say at least 4 or 5 years, because I'd have to try to find census records, what was happening in 1874, and I did Texas history of the river. Like if she came up from Galveston, what cities would she pass by? And I'd say 4 or 5 years to get all the research together. Research just motivates me because I'm looking for a stone that's hidden. And I mean, a certain idea may come to me and I'll hit something and go, wow, I didn't know that. So you're always looking for that wow factor in things that may have not been told or we may not have known. So I do get excited when I find something new or maybe unknown in research. Yes.
Cynthia has had great success with her first book, but then she decided to take her love for research to another
The
level.
new book is The Search for Vanished Schools. And this one, uh, that one was motivated by the fact that I was raised in a rural area. At one time, there was an all Black school called Green Chapel School. So when I go back to my home place, we still own the property down there. I decided to take my husband. I said, I'm going to show you where there was an old school that my older brothers and my dad's people went to. And we went there, and there was nothing but trees. So he didn't believe me. He said, oh, there was no school there. There's only trees. And so I just got like, I've got to prove to him and to me that there was indeed a school there because it had not fallen down before I left the community. And he and my son went on like a trek or a scavenger hunt or whatever to find some remnants of the school. We walked off in there and I was about to give up. And my husband said, there's something sticking up here. And we went over there. It was an old swing. The swing the kids used to play over had leaned over on its side. And I just went, wow, that's it. That's it. And I just started researching that one. And it snowballed into at least 10 different schools in our area that only one is still there that are no longer visible, or we call them, they have vanished, but the memories and the building and the education they received, we have to document that. We have to.
Now that Cynthia's books are published, she loves to go out and talk about her books to different
I
audiences.
get invited because we have a whole generation of people who either their parents didn't talk about it, and very few people had cameras, and they were not able to share this. So this is like something that was left out of our history. It was like we went straight into this is the school you attended. Of course, I went to integrated school, and there was it. That was it. So I get invited for people who love the fact that I can carry them back to what their ancestors went through, which are the shoulders that we stand on today to be who we are
After
today.
many years of research and now publishing her books, the media is taking notice.
That I got invited by a KLTV news reporter. And I was like, huh? He said, I want to do a story on your research and your book. And that was like almost a highlight. Now wherever I go, people say, I saw you on TV. I saw you on TV. So that was really sweet. Very important that there be some documentation or something that a person can go back and look at 30 years from now, 40 years from now, and say, oh, this is good. This is good to know. Well, I am a part of a writers club, and we keep pushing each other beyond just our little short stories. Most of us do short story. Most of us are published, but to get into the book world, it takes really dedication because
Yes.
you're going to deal with professional editors, and you're going to deal with trying to get traditional publishers, or you're going to self-publish. So I just kind of let this one simmer for a while, but there's always another book in the back of my mind, always.
So, after we discussed how she got started with her writing life, I asked her about her hobbies.
Well, I guess the word hobby may be what it's called, but it's also work. So we'll say work hobby in that my husband and I have been raising cattle over 25 years. We raise Black Angus, and it just requires dedication. We get out there and we have to make sure they're fed properly
Mm-hmm.
and watch them with the calving and that type of thing. And on that space where the cows are, we have a small garden and we have 2 ponds. So I do get a relaxation when I get down there. We handle what we need to do, fix the fence, help a mom with the calf or whatever. And then I like to go and walk around the pond and just relax. So it's work and relaxing.
As writers, we are always looking for a quiet place to write. So I asked Cynthia if she found time to relax and write when she's out on the farm.
I can be out. We have a fish pond, throwing something to the fish, and a story will just come to me. Or sometimes I'm listening to a story on the news, and you get that wonder why factor. Then here I go. I'm trying to research it. So I get ideas from several places. Yes.
You know, when we get into our midlife, sometimes it's hard for us to get out of our comfort zone. I asked Cynthia, how does she get out of her comfort zone and do the things that she's doing over 50?
That takes a lot of pushing and just believing the stories that are coming through the writer's mind or stories that you have to put on paper. And a lot of times you're going to constantly question, well, this doesn't make sense. Somebody will criticize it or somebody doesn't like it. But if that's the story that you feel you have to tell, I write it, whether it gets published or not. I still have to write it. So you're just pushing yourself to know that you have to go beyond what's comfortable because it needs to be told. It needs to be
I
told.
asked Cynthia what advice she would give to others over 50 who might want to get into the writing life.
I just spoke with a lady at one of the talks I did a couple of weeks ago who has been journaling a lot. And she said, a lot of people said, I would like to get this in a memoir. So, one of the first things that help, if in your city or whatever there's writers' clubs, being around other writers will push you. Just when you're ready to just throw it down and sit down and watch TV or play with the phone for hours, if you're in a writers club, they're going to ask you, did you finish that story? Did you write that? So you need accountability with other writers. And then, of course, what we call beta readers. A lot of times we write the best story possible. It's perfect. But you need to let, and I always say an odd number, 3, 5, or 7 people read it to give their opinion of the story or what part doesn't make sense. Because if 2 people say, this doesn't make sense, you may want to consider it. Mm-hmm. If just one person says it, you can always say, well, I like that style, I'm going to keep it. Mm-hmm. So just knowing that other people can see things differently helps also. And I said, if you want to write, just get started. Just start writing.
If you're a fan of historical fiction or nonfiction, you can get your hands on Cynthia's books here.
First book is through bookbaby.com, Dancing in the White Sand. And the second one is, of course, on Amazon, The Search for Vanished School by Cynthia L. Matlock. And it's available in ebook and paperback. And I tell everybody, I think both would be great assets for their libraries.
And then we had to take a little trip down memory lane.
But that piano, I guess it was meant to be in there, reminded me of when my husband and I first married. We lived down the road from Rochelle and her family. I never forget that. And her mom says, I want you to teach my boys to play piano. And I tease them now when I see them. One was happy, and one was like, I don't really want to learn this piano. But we enjoyed being neighbor with Rochelle and her family. It was really great.
Yes. I have such fond memories of you and Francis.
We really appreciate author Cynthia Matlock stopping by to tell us about her creative writing life. If you are interested in her books, there's more information and the links in the description. Hey friends, just a little commercial break. I have a new Printify store, and this beautiful mug is in my store. Also, a beautiful t-shirt, a couple of mugs and t-shirts and a bag that focus on living your creative life. Please check out my Printify store. There's a link in the description. Well, friends, I hope you enjoyed our coffee chat. And if you like content like this, please consider liking and subscribing to Shelly's Creative Life, where we talk about all things creative. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye, friends.